Imagine living in a country where one family influences your job. The news you read, the car you drive, the football team you cheer for, and even the policies written in Brussels. Not elected, not appointed, not officially in power, yet they shape the direction of an entire nation. In Italy, that family is the Agnelli family. They've controlled car empires like Fiat, luxury icons like Ferrari, media outlets including The Economist, and even the legendary football club Juventus FC. At one point, companies under their influence accounted for a massive portion of Italy's industrial output. Entire towns depended on them, governments negotiated with them, politicians avoided crossing them. And here's the uncomfortable question. Is Italy a democracy? Or a dynasty with elections? Let's break this down chronologically. No mythology, no romanticism. Just power, strategy, and survival. Italy became a unified nation in the late 19th century. It was politically fragile, economically uneven, and largely rural. Then came Giovanni Agnelli. In 1899, he co-founded Fiat in Turin. At the time, cars were experimental toys for the rich. Italy barely had roads. There was no domestic demand. So let's be clear, this wasn't luck. It was a calculated bet on industrialization. The early factory produced a few dozen cars. Within years, production scaled. Fiat adopted advanced manufacturing techniques, bought patents aggressively, and expanded internationally, even opening operations in New York before most Italians had seen a car. But power attracts scrutiny. In 1908, Fiat was hit with a financial scandal involving accusations of stock manipulation. Giovanni was dragged to court, walked free, but he learned something critical. Industrial success isn't enough. You must control politics too. That lesson shaped the next century. When World War I began, Fiat pivoted immediately. Cars became trucks, factories built tanks, engines powered aircraft. War contracts exploded revenues. Fiat became central to Italy's military production. Critics accused the company of profiteering. Public pressure increased. Giovanni's response, lined with power, supported Benito Mussolini, who rose to dominance in the 1920s. During the fascist regime, Fiat became even more embedded in state industry. Here's the harsh truth. The Agnellis did not operate on ideology. They operated on survival and advantage. During World War II, Fiat again supplied the regime. When the tide turned against Mussolini, the family adjusted its position. After 1945, assets were briefly seized for collaboration. But Italy couldn't afford to dismantle Fiat. It was too economically vital. That's the pattern. Become indispensable. You become untouchable. Post-war Italy needed rebuilding. Enter Gianni Agnelli, grandson of Giovanni. He wasn't just an executive. He became a symbol of Italian capitalism. Under Gianni, Fiat absorbed brands like Alfa Romeo, Lancia, and later strengthened control over Ferrari. Factories expanded globally. Hundreds of thousands worked directly or indirectly for Fiat. At its peak, Fiat's influence reached deep into Italy's GDP and labor market. In some regions, entire communities revolved around Fiat plants. But Gianni understood something even more important. Industry alone doesn't guarantee dominance. He attempted expansion into France by negotiating with Citroën. The deal nearly succeeded. Then French President Charles de Gaulle blocked it. That moment revealed a hard ceiling. Political sovereignty beats corporate ambition. So the Agnellis adapted again. If you can't overpower politics, influence it. Owning factories gives economic leverage. Owning media shapes perception. The Agnelli holding company expanded aggressively into publishing. They gained control of major Italian newspapers and later acquired a significant stake in The Economist. Understand the strategic shift here. Cars move people physically. Media moves people mentally. With influence over editorial lines and economic discourse, the family's reach extended beyond Italy into global financial circles. This isn't conspiracy theory, structural influence. Media shapes investor sentiment. Investor sentiment shapes markets. Markets shape policy. The Agnellis position themselves at all three levels. Economic power is transactional. Cultural power is emotional. The family has controlled Juventus since the 1920s. Football in Italy is not entertainment, it's identity. When Juventus wins, millions celebrate. The Agnellis become associated with national pride. Now combine that with Ferrari. Ferrari represents prestige, performance, and exclusivity. Over decades, Fiat increased its stake until it effectively controlled the company's structure. Even after Ferrari went public, Exor maintained significant voting power. So think about this. Fiat equals mass industry, Ferrari equals elite prestige, Juventus equals emotional loyalty. The Economist equals global narrative. That's not diversification. That's systemic positioning. Today, leadership rests with John Elkann. He doesn't look like a political operator. He rarely speaks dramatically. He avoids ideological battles. But Exor manages tens of billions in assets across sectors: mobility, healthcare, technology, media. The company even shifted its legal base to the Netherlands for structural flexibility. That move wasn't cosmetic. It optimized governance and capital mobility within Europe. This is not old-school industrial dominance anymore. This is institutional influence, participation in European business councils, access to regulatory discussions, strategic stakes in data-driven companies. Modern power docenti require visibility. It requires access, and the Agnellis have access. So what's the real story? Let's remove drama and look at the pattern logically. Build an essential industry. Align with whoever holds political power. Survive regime changes. Expand into media. Control cultural symbols. Embed within supranational institutions. This isn't luck. It's multi-generational, strategic positioning. The Agnellis didn't dominate through loud aggression. They dominated through durability. They outlasted monarchies, survived fascism. They adapted to democracy. They integrated into the European Union framework. Most people outside Italy barely know their name. Final question: if one family influences major industries, employment at scale, media narratives, cultural institutions, European regulatory circles, then what does democracy really mean in practice? Is power defined by elections? Or by who remains standing, no matter who wins them? That's the real discussion. If you made it this far, you now understand something most people don't. Real power is quiet. It compounds, and it survives. See you in the next breakdown.